Good evening and welcome to Lead Story Prime. Tonight we confront an uncomfortable but unavoidable reality. Death comes for every family, but dignity at the end of life becomes increasingly expensive. Funerals now cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Insurance policies many Jamaicans rely on don't always pay when expected, and when the state takes custody of a body through the police procedures or through autopsies, families can be left waiting and paying. So tonight we ask, are Jamaicans being priced out of dignity after death? And are financial products protecting families or trapping them? Big questions as well. When the state controls a process, who is responsible for the cost of delay? This is the business of death. And this is Lead Story Prime. This is a full discussion, and so tonight I'm joined by a full panel who will be with us for the entire hour. Starting off, financial educator Carlton Stewart, the CEO of Canopy Insurance, Oliver Tomlinson, CEO of the Consumers Intervention of Jamaica, Michael Diamond, and Calvin Lynn, President of the Jamaica Association of Certified Embalmers and Funeral Directors. But first, let's ground this conversation in facts. So, here's Amoy.
The transition from life to final rest has become a multi-billion-dollar industry. While the emotional toll of losing a loved one is immeasurable, the financial toll is now quantifiable and increasingly unaffordable for many households. Tonight we are examining the business of death, how much funerals really cost, whether insurance protects families as intended, and how state procedures can delay dignity after death. Now, the funeral industry in Jamaica is estimated to generate approximately $10 billion annually. Families are navigating a market where prices are high and in many cases unpredictable. Broadly speaking, funeral costs fall into three tiers. A basic or small burial package, which typically ranges from $250,000 to $300,000. A lavish or premium funeral, which can easily exceed $500,000. And in the public sphere, funeral homes report that state-funded pauper and unclaimed burials have accumulated arrears of roughly $100 million across the sector. What's critical to understand is that funerals are rarely priced as a single headline figure. Instead, industry experts recommend a basket approach where total cost is driven by multiple components. Professional fees, including removal, storage, and embalming, casket or urn selection, often the single largest variable, cemetery and burial plot fees, and ancillary expense repasts, floral arrangements, and religious obligations that are frequently decided under emotional pressure. Now, data from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin reveals a troubling pattern. Funeral costs are rising faster than average wages. Even during periods when the consumer price index moderates, funeral prices remain resistant to downward pressure. This creates what economists describe as a vulnerability gap. Families already under emotional duress are forced to make major financial commitments at precisely the moment they are least able to assess long-term consequences. Now, insurance is meant to function as a safety net. However, the Financial Services Commission has repeatedly flagged recurring issues in the market. These include delays in payouts, particularly for group life policies, unexpected deductions arising from administrative fees or exclusions, and limited consumer understanding of policy terms at the point of sale. In response to these gaps, microinsurance legislation slated for the 2025-26 fiscal year is currently on the legislative agenda. The goal is to regulate small value insurance products more tightly, making them more accessible, clearer, and safer for low-income earners. Now, when disputes arise, whether over funeral fees or insurance payouts, the resolution pathway is structured. The first step is always the vendor. the funeral home, or insurer. If that fails, complaints are escalated to the Consumer Affairs Commission, which handles approximately 2,000 complaints per year, resolving about 80 to 85% of cases. For insurance-specific conduct issues, the matter may then be taken to the FSC. The process exists, but it requires documentation, persistence, and time, which grieving families may not have. The business of death also extends into the public sector. Funeral homes contracted to handle pauper burials or unclaimed bodies, often following medico-legal cases and post-mortems, report that the government owes around $100 million in arrears. Recent Court of Appeal rulings have clarified protocols for body retrieval and storage. However, the payment integrity of state-managed deaths remains contested, raising questions about who ultimately bears the cost when funerals are delayed by public processes. These are the facts framing tonight's conversation. Death is inevitable, but dignity after death should not depend on income, insurance fine print, or bureaucratic delay. It's back to you, Jody.
Thank you, Amoy. Now let's bring in the panel as we look at the business of death. Calvin Lynn, I want to start with you. As we're having this conversation, when families hear funerals costs, they could be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, even more. What are they actually paying for, and what do they underestimate the most?
Well, the cost of funerals is dependent on the family members. Affordability is the key. I'll tell you that in some areas, it's like a competition between this family and the other one. Like would have experiences whereby this family number one, would bury their deceased relative last month, and in the same community, you have somebody passed on just now, and that relative would come and decide exactly, we want something above that.
Better than.
So it's like that in some areas. But in the norm, I believe that it is the choice of the family. And what am I saying is that you decide how much you're going to spend to lay your departed loved ones to rest. So that mainly, in my opinion, is what I've seen, and that is how we react and how we try to assist the relatives when they visit our offices and to make arrangements.
There could be showing off, there could be profiling, but some people don't even know what they should be looking for in pricing. If you're going to be outdoing your neighbor as you're looking at these sorts of prices, where are you starting from and what are you paying for? Because for some people, you're looking at funeral costs unexpectedly arising, and these could range anywhere from, as we heard from Amoy, $200,000, $500,000, even more than that. What are people paying for when they pay for this?
Okay, folks would ask, what does the package entails? So, transportation, removal of the remains in the first instance, the hearse service, floral arrangements, programs, bookmarks, buttons, the embalming, preparation, and of course the casket. The casket that is chosen determines the cost eventually. So yes, it varies because people, as I've said before, would make a decision depending on their finances.
Making a decision depending on their finances. But Carlton Stewart, I pull you in here. For many people, they're not prepared for death. They don't have finances set aside for death. But they must also have their family members, in Jamaican parlance, go down good. Making sure that they have a good repast, a good setup, they have a good night, and they know that those who are living will be watching and commenting. Does that put pressure on individuals as they now prepare for funerals to now go out and perhaps above any budget that they might have had for this?
Definitely. I mean, as you mentioned, in our culture, you have to go down good, glass casket, they want that. And you find that many persons, because death is so emotional, but the funeral is financial, and that's just the avid truth. And anywhere you mix emotions with the finances and the emotion takes over, the budget gets burst, and that's just the reality. Even if there is no budget to begin with, the budget gets burst. Because when you go into the parlor now, nobody remembers, my budget is $300,000. You go into the place and the casket looks good. This one's for $80,000, but you see one for $150,000. Because you want to give your loved one a good send-off, the rational thinking goes through the door. You want the one that looks the best. And that impacts so many persons financially. When you are finished with a funeral and you see the level of expenses that is racked up in 3 to 7 to 10 days, because bear in mind, when somebody dies, the window for planning the funeral sometimes is so short, and not having sufficient finances in place, the budget, you tend to go over, because you are so emotionally charged now to give your relatives a good send-off. So you, half the times, 90% of the time, the budget gets burst before you even know it, because of the emotional impact of a funeral.
That emotional impact, Michael Diamond, is something then that will have people practically go into funeral planning and preparation, but because they don't have a list of prices, a cost comparison in the way that they might shop for other things. You look here and you say these prices look more affordable than here. The very short window that they'll often have to plan a funeral means that they'll be spending money often that not only did they not plan, but they'll also feel pressure. When you hear complaints about people saying, I looked at this funeral, I have complaints about what it is that I had to deal with from a consumer protection standpoint. Do they often complain about price, the surprise fees, or the pressure of the process of guilt of grief rather at that time?
Absolutely, all the above. And to make it perfectly clear, we're speaking about a sector that is unregulated. This is a sector that's unregulated, so there isn't a standard across the board expectation of what prices might be. At the heart of it is still competition. You know, individuals are still competing for the dead, unfortunately. And some of the complaints that consumers do speak about are just that you may have one funeral home that has the body, and each day goes by, there's a storage cost. And what happened is that some funeral homes may use that as a negotiating tactic, because once you rack up storage costs, that funeral home may negotiate with you and says, hey, guess what? We'll absorb the cost if you happen to do the service with us, rather than take it to where you want it to go to. So there are individuals who feels a bit pressured to say, well, you know, I can't pay this money for storage and then take it to my funeral home of choice. Why not just stay here since they're willing to absorb the cost? But again, that's just the cost of doing business and competition. We don't have necessarily a general price list that individuals can take and then compare between homes. That doesn't exist currently as a standard across the board. So yes, you're going to have that. But keeping in mind that it's not just about the dead, it's also about the living. Individuals will like to send off their loved one with dignity.
Yeah, I understand.
You know, and the memory of that individual is celebrating their life. So with that in mind, you know, individuals are susceptible to being taken advantage by unscrupulous operators.
And unscrupulous operators might exist in this sphere. We'll speak with Oliver Tomlinson after the break, starting off our next discussion about insurance and the kind of protections that they might be able to provide as we talk about the business of death. Stay with us.
If you're a woman in business, it's time to go bigger.
Your ambition is calling, and Horizon for Women in Business is answering.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services designed for women entrepreneurs to unlock the capital you need to grow and take your business beyond limits. With quick approval, flexible repayment, and low interest rates, your success is on the horizon.
Call us now. The funds are waiting.
Your success is on the horizon.
the internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's a live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Tonight, we're discussing the business of death and how much money you have to pay in order to give a dignified burial to your loved ones. Tonight, we have with us financial educator Carlton Stewart, CEO of Canopy Insurance, Oliver Tomlinson, CEO of the Consumers Intervention of Jamaica, Michael Diamond, and Calvin Lynn, President of the Jamaica Association of Certified Embalmers and Funeral Directors. Oliver Tomlinson, you're up, because we're having conversations about money and paying for funerals. And some people are saying, well, I pay for insurance. I am looking now for a payout that, having planned for this now, I should be able to have a nice funeral or allow for my family members, when I'm gone, not to feel the stress. Some, however, say that's not what they experience. What is it that is happening and what's supposed to happen?
Well, the first thing that persons must make sure they do is that they have adequate life insurance. Some persons may ask, how much insurance is enough? And I always say, you look at it as a sponge that you use for a high jump. And I say, the amount of insurance that you take out is always depending on how you want to land. If you want to land, boof, then you have no life insurance coverage. But if you want to land in a nice, comfortable way, get good insurance. Persons often take out insurance, do not pay the premiums for a long time, and when you need the insurance, at that point,
it's not there.
You run to life insurance company, and we hear things like, but I had it and I paid it for years. Yes, but the policy said that you have to continuously pay it. And if you have not paid for the past 6 months or for the past year, then there's nothing to get. The policy might have lapsed. So the first thing that persons must ensure that they do, that they maintain their policy by paying their premiums.
All right, so that's step one, especially as you're looking now for people who are hoping to claim and to then be able to have funerals set up. But what's some other reasons that you've heard for people to have their claims denied or delayed as they're now waiting for the money to give their loved one a decent send-off?
Honestly, there are not a lot of things that causes the insurance company to delay the payment, apart from sometimes who was named as the beneficiary. So if a person takes out, let's say Calvin takes out life insurance, and he names his estate as the beneficiary because he wants the money to go into a particular fund, then one of his daughters can't come and say, well, I need to get the insurance money, because his designation is for the estate to get it. And so until a particular will is probated or the estate is looked at, then the insurance company cannot pay to that person. What insurance companies often do in trying to allow the person to go off in dignity and in a timely manner, they would say, okay, if you send an invoice from the insurance company, from the funeral home rather, and this is the amount that the funeral is going to cost, then the insurance company very, very often, and more likely than not, will pay the money to the insurance company, so to the funeral home, so that you can take care of the final expenses. That's hoping that the money that is insured, the insurance amount,
Is enough.
Can cover it.
For the nice funeral. Let me bring Calvin Lynn here because you called his name, you talked about his estate. Calvin Lynn, you are now the president of an association that has members that say, listen, this all sounds well and good, but sometimes we end up being the de facto enforcers. We have to be doing the back and forth between the insurance company and the family, and people are blaming us, the funeral directors and homes, for now delays that insurance company is doing, meaning that you're getting cut off for work that is happening now on the other side or not happening on the other side. How often do families blame you for the delays that are caused by insurers?
Not often.
Oh, that's good.
No, I'm telling you the truth, because in another capacity as a justice of the peace, I happen to see documents coming my way by beneficiaries who are claiming on that insurance policy in relation to the deceased person. And even the members of my association, I don't get many complaints of that nature. So it seems as if there's a good relationship between the beneficiary and the insurance companies.
That's great. Then that Oliver Tomlinson is saying is true. The people need to pay their premiums then so that they can have this easy process and this full payout.
And we do know that when you pay, whether it's monthly or whatever the agreement might be, it's easier. When you have discontinued for a time and it mounts up to whatever, it's more difficult to find to reinstate that policy.
Well, that's important to be able to figure out. But Carlton Stewart, let me pull you in here because it's a finances conversation. You're the finances guy. We're watching a situation where we're talking about insurance products and we're hearing now Oliver Tomlinson say to us, listen, we don't really have a lot of things hindering us. But many people then, as they're looking at this from a planning perspective, is funeral insurance, this sort of protection that you can have here, are the best product, or are Jamaicans often overinsured in one area and underinsured in another?
Yeah, I think that not much information is being put out concerning funeral insurance, because as my colleague here just mentioned, there is life insurance, and I don't recommend often to use the life insurance for the funeral expenses, because there's a product designed in the market in most cases where you can get insurance for the funeral expenses, because you want your life insurance to actually help the family to live a little bit better, given that maybe you are one of the primary providers. So if it is that there is a funeral insurance there, there is in the market where you can go. It's generally cheap or cheaper than sometimes life insurance. So what you need to do is to have a balanced portfolio, because one thing is sure, well, two things: death is sure and tax is sure, right? So you know death is coming. So what I want us to do when we're doing our financial planning, when we're looking at what we need to get done, do not overcompensate in one area, which is life only, and not focusing on the death aspect of things. Because when you have death insurance, the money from that covers the funeral, and then the life insurance covers other things.
And it's likely to have a faster payout as well.
Much faster payout.
Because it understands that very narrow window.
Once there's a death certificate,
yes,
you're good to go.
Well, Michael, Diamond, I pull you in here because everybody's talking about how it should run, how it's supposed to go. Talk to us about the complaints that you hear.
Well, it sounds really good, to say that everything runs smooth. Keeping in mind, insurance companies, these agreements that you sign are contracts, and they do have specific terms and contracts, conditions, especially when it comes down to the cause of death is also very important regarding how they're going to pay out. That's very important. So we would advise consumers to actually read these policies, regardless of what an agent or broker explains to you. Read it for yourself. Know exactly what will occur in order for you to get that payout, because as mentioned, specifically who the beneficiaries are, so when individuals complain about the delay, that delay oftentimes is actually based upon the legal obligations of the insurance company that may have been affected by something that wasn't done. For example, the insurance company may not want to pay out if that individual committed suicide. They may not want to pay out if, in fact, certain cause of death may have been criminal in nature. So it's just not simply that the individual die and you're going to get a payout. So you need to know what those terms and conditions are specifically in order for you to make sure that you don't have that delay problem.
Oliver, yes?
And most times that will be built into the policy. So there are some policies that if you take out an insurance policy, it will tell you that if you commit suicide within the first 2 years, then there might not be a payout. Because you don't want persons to take out a massive insurance policy knowing
and then behaving as though this is going to benefit their family and then incentivize them to do harmful acts themselves.
So there are always clauses in the policy that are very specific. And to go back to what was said earlier by Carlton, the important thing is to have multiple life insurance policies. You need to have an insurance policy that takes care of critical illnesses. Because if you are diagnosed with a critical illness, a life insurance policy is not necessarily going to pay out to help you to take care of it.
To stay alive?
No.
Your life insurance policy is after death, your beneficiaries benefit, but you, to stay alive, to keep you alive, won't be helpful.
But there are some policies which allow you to take out the critical, and you can have multiple policies.
So critical illness, life insurance or life assurance, funeral insurance. At this point in time, every insurance is what you're suggesting. Oliver Tomlinson, this cannot go on.
I tell you that. I think everybody should insure that your family is, not just you. So people can get life insurance in Jamaica at very minimal cost, I can say, that will cover you and your family. And especially if you are the breadwinner, or whether or not you're the breadwinner, you have to think about other persons. What you do not want to do is to be forced to use your life savings to bury a loved one and therefore sacrifice the education of your children, for example.
But we just had recent statistics showing that at the end of people getting their salaries and paying out what they need to, they have 4% of their income left. No matter how minimal it is that you're suggesting insurance payments are, if all I have after paying my bills is 4%, it's still going to be unaffordable for many Jamaicans.
4% of what, no? Because 4% percentage is very interesting.
4% hides a lot, but most Jamaicans are making around $100,000 per month. If that is something that they must then pay their bills out of, is this a situation where people must go into debt? Let me talk to Calvin Lynn first, because is this a situation where you're seeing, Calvin Lynn, people having to go into debt, having to borrow money, having to ask around now in order for that very small window of time that they have between the death and the burial to get this done?
Yes, I've seen it happening. It is no secret, because sometimes the relatives would even tell us their situation, and at times, as an individual funeral director, we would give some little concession there, because understanding the whole situation of affordability. So yes, at times we do consider the situation as it demands, and then we take some action there.
But you can't act in every single case, and everybody has a sad story.
Well, gladly, it is not really a high percentage.
Okay, that's good, and you're able to have some flexibility in that. Well, we'll take a break inside Lead Story, because when funeral directors and funeral homes receive bodies, you just heard, individuals are likely to pay. But what happens if the state sends the body? We'll talk about that next here inside Lead Story.
Start your journey with a Jane Bank Small Business Loan, with small business loans with as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million.
The time is 8:30.
Welcome to Jamrock. Jamaica, Jamaica. Oh, my reggae nice and it make ya.
It is such a joy to be here this evening with you at the 2025 Hummingbird Gala.
The American Friends of Jamaica presents its Hummingbird Gala, honoring Joseph Joe Bogdanovich and Jason Hensel.
We're celebrating business leaders. We are celebrating public servants, philanthropists.
Don't miss it this Thursday at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
The business of funerals, that's what we're focused on today. Now we're turning to where grief meets state power. Because when a death is classified as medico-legal, that is, there's some medical concern, some legal concern, something that requires the family to lose control of the timing and put it into the state's hands, it often means that families don't get to control what happens to the body and when the funeral gets to take place. Gavin, then what happens when a body is held for post-mortem for weeks? And how does that affect things like embalming, storage, and costs? Something that Michael Diamond mentioned earlier.
Okay. The Institute of Forensic Medicine, that is an agency of the Ministry of National Security, works in conjunction with the police. Okay. You'll have tragic deaths, of course, drowning, gunshot, motor vehicle accident, and sudden deaths. You'll find sudden deaths in two classes, as it were. One whereby the person, deceased, was being seen by a doctor, and depends on the situation, the suspicion of death would be determined by the medical practitioner who was treating that individual, so that within 3 months, according to law, he or she, as the medical doctor, is in a position to look on the file to say, yes, I'm in a position to issue the death certificate. So that is done. When it's the opposite, was visiting a doctor, then that, and there's no suspicion of foul play by the police, then an autopsy is necessary to be done at the cost of the family. The other area is control or under the auspices of the Ministry of National Security through the forensic unit. So we are one of the 12 contractors in the island for the government. So at times, based on the number of deaths, you will find that storage for a particular case, whether it's be a gunshot GSV or a motor vehicle accident or whatever, that is arranged by the forensic unit. So we are asked, we are given the requisition to take X amount to the particular venue for the post-mortem examination to be done. It is being speeded up now because they have more pathologists on the island, as I'm told.
And that was a backlog issue that was being experienced?
So for now, at present, I would say that hardly more than 2 months.
But who's paying for it during this time?
The government.
The government is paying.
Pays the contractor.
But currently, there seems to be some difficulty between the contractors who are not getting paid by the state, and now a case that makes it very difficult for contractors to receive money from the state, with that being clarified. Talk to us about it, because funeral home owners and embalmers have said they push back on it, they reject what the court has said.
Yes, that is so. But we see that service being provided as a contribution to the country. First of all, the daily rates and other rates are subsidized. I'm telling you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because you do work for the government, ordinary people get cheaper rates because you're able to charge the government more?
No, we don't charge the government more. The government itself is being subsidized by us, the contractors.
Aha. As you do your national duty.
Exactly. Because honestly, we are patriotic Jamaicans. We are not in the funeral business for the quick buck.
All right, well, maybe Jamaicans at home might not see that when they go to get funeral services. They might not feel that they are able to benefit from the patriotic duty that you and others like you do. But Michael Diamond, when the state controls the body, sometimes these bodies have to be in storage for long periods of time. Should the family bear the cost of delay, any at all?
Well, let us address that. The fact of the matter is that the government needs funeral services and morgue services, and in order to have that provided, they do contract with particular funeral homes across the country that would serve basically within zone areas. In cases that are police cases, they would be given to that particular funeral home within that jurisdiction of where that incident occurred. Now, what happened is that with most things with government, unfortunately, there is some untidiness there. For while, of course, Mr. Lynn speak to the patriotic duty, the fact of the matter is that a lot of the other contracted providers can't actually subsidize in such a way, especially when there's a delay, because it's a cost to them. And they are already subsidizing the cost of that with the government. So they do charge less as part of their contractual agreement.
They also have spaces taken up inside
and
their
homes. There's also space that
they're not able to take on other jobs because they have these government cases.
You know, so what has happened is that there has been, you know, a situation in the past where there was some confusion regarding who would be paying, because there was a point in time when the JCF was responsible for paying, and when that shift over to the Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine, that there was that confusion of who would continue to pay, unfortunately. So there was a the government owed a lot of money to these funeral homes, and you know, even though they're attempting to address that situation right now, you know, there's still a pressing concern, and this is going over 5+ years, you know, that there hasn't been any payment, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. So what happens is that to know that it's the contracted providers that the government has to utilize for government morgue services, and not just any funeral home. You know, so those contractors are basically restricted. You know, there isn't any competitiveness where you are binded by that agreement, you know, so you are obligated to provide the service, and you're not at liberty to refuse to do the service based on your contract. So that is something that, you know, when you mention it, I don't want it to appear to the public that, you know, there are some individuals who are getting preferential treatment. There isn't preferential treatment, and really and truly based on the cost, it's really a sense of patriotic duty because you're giving up on competitive rates that you could have, you know, in order for you to provide a service.
Oliver Tomlinson, let me pull you in here, because when the state has a custody of a body, how many cases do you have an intersect between government processes now and insurance claims that you might have to now navigate your way through?
Well, one of the requirements for you to submit a claim is to have the death certificate or the cause of death. And so you are, as an insurance company, you are notified of the death, but the claim requires certain documentation to be processed. So we don't pay out just a notification. You have to wait until the documentation come in, and we have to protect ourselves also. And so you're right, the time lapse between the death and the actual claim could be long. Now sometimes what happens
because of the wait for that documentation.
Yeah, sometimes the individuals go ahead and make funeral arrangement on the assumption or on the word that, you know, we'll be getting the body by a certain time. And so they might say to us, well, I need put the claim in so that I can bury my loved one, because I was told that the autopsy is going to take place this Monday and I want to bury the person on Friday. Most cases, as I said earlier, what the insurance company will do is to say to the funeral home that, okay, if you submit an invoice and the beneficiaries have indicated that they're giving us the permission to go ahead and pay out that amount that money to the funeral home, and then we work afterwards for the balance of the money. So it is a case where everybody can work together to ensure that this is done. But I don't think it's a case where if the government takes a long time to release the body, that the family is going to be suffering and have to pay that additional 2 or 3 months storage fee, because it's not on their behest, but it's the government that is causing that. So in cases, I think Selena and Diamond could talk about that.
Let me just pull in Kevin in here before I go to Carlton Stewart here. You wanted to respond to what Oliver Tomlinson was saying.
Yes, the cost of the tragic cases, as I mentioned before, is borne by the government until the day of the post-mortem examination, when the relatives would take possession, claim that remains.
But this then puts you in the situation that Michael Diamond spoke of earlier, where because you have the body, it is now difficult for a family member to move the body to somewhere else, to have their preferred funeral home deal with it, because of the potential concessions that a funeral home might be able to give them, because you might not call it special privilege, but you have the body now that will allow for you to likely take control of the funeral.
Concession, it would be more or less the policy, the laws of the country, whereby the person crashed in Manchester and removed the body, it cannot be transferred to another parish until the autopsy is done.
I think that's important, and that is before the autopsy. After the autopsy, you can move the body around. But Carlton Stewart, we're hiring a private business here, so that they're taking on public concerns. When private businesses are forced to finance public obligations through arrears because the government is not paying them. You heard Michael Diamond talk about the back money, Kevin Lynn talking about that as well. What happens to the rest of us? Won't we just be expecting that when you go to your funeral home, we just have to pay more expensive fees, especially given that we don't have a menu that allows us to compare and contrast in the way that we would have been purchasing most other things in our lives?
Pay the expensive money. And I understand and I appreciate where the funeral homes are having the challenges, where the debts that are not being paid, etc., and the backlog. But as you mentioned earlier, the funeral industry is a booming industry.
$100 billion industry.
$100 billion industry.
Unregulated.
Go again?
Unregulated.
Unregulated. And that includes the direct costs. It includes the indirect costs, because remember, culturally there are costs that sometimes are not factored in from the funeral home.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. So we're talking about that after the break, because those are the things as well. It's not just the body, it's not just the burial, it is the night, it is the expensive outfit, it's the everything that you might have to do, and the taking care of other people. Let's take a quick break inside Lead Story, talking about what fixes this, but also talking about the additional pressures now that family and friends have to deal with during this difficult time. Stay with us.
Stir fry, and then do the walk, the donate walk, then you run, and then you run, and then you wheel and come in, then you donate to educate, donate to rebuild the school, donate, whether small, whether big, anything at all you can donate, come out of your pocket, come out of your wallet. We need all of the donations now. Ding dong, ravers, Sagiport, register now.
Welcome to Jamrock, Jamaica. Oh, my reggae nice and it make ya.
It is such a joy to be here this evening with you at the 2025 Hummingbird Gala.
The American Friends of Jamaica presents its Hummingbird Gala, honoring Joseph Joe Bogdanovich and Jason Hensel.
We're celebrating business leaders. We are celebrating public servants, philanthropists.
Don't miss it this Thursday at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Costs and solutions. That's what we're focused on as we close out this big conversation about the business of funerals here in Jamaica. Let's first talk about the cost. You gentlemen, before the break, were talking about how much it might cost. Carlton, when we talk about the preparation for a funeral, we've been stressing Calvin Lynn and his association members, caskets, we've been talking about storage. But often funerals in Jamaica are a big business for other players as well. Who else are we thinking of when we think of putting on a good show at the close of someone's life?
When you're looking at, I know Mr. Lynn mentioned earlier the other amenities, the flowers, the buttons, the shirts. So you're talking about print trees. You're talking about the person who's doing flowers on the side. You're talking about decorators, because no wedding is really a wedding. Funerals, you have the church being decorated, carpet being rolled out. You're talking event planners, the repast aspect of it, and or the reception. So may call it
and
the
that's after the funeral.
That's after the funeral.
But this is not the 9 night before.
That is after. Then at the 9 night, the night leading up to the 9 night.
The 9 nights often that are celebrated.
Domino, the drinking, food every night. Then you're talking about the setup. The night before, then you have the band, the cost. These are all costs.
And this is bands are often players who come singing songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Music is coming. The bands have large groups of people. They are often considered to be ambience in some areas of Jamaica. That is necessary as a part of it, and they're not cheap as well.
No. Plus the sound man, because some may not want a band. It's with a sound now, with a dance sound. So we're looking at, on average, about an additional $250,000.
And this is on top of the $200,000 to $500,000 that you might be paying. So $750,000 that you might be asked to pay tomorrow with the minimum, with no expectation of where that money might be coming, unless Oliver Tomlins, unless they had something set up for that. Are you covering in insurance 9 night costs, band costs, outfit costs to go to the funeral and to have this there? The manish water has to be the great kind, and you might have it 2-3 nights. The curry goat has to be special that you're preparing for individuals. The rum has to be the variety of the kinds, or the people will say it was a cheap funeral. Are you covering those costs as well?
You get what you pay for. If you want to have a payout of multiple millions of dollars, be prepared to pay the premium for that. And once you pay the premium, the life insurance company will pay out to you because you have paid for that, and you do whatever you want to do with it. What I would encourage a lot of Jamaicans to do is stop this competitiveness when it comes to funeral and putting a big show. The sad reality is a lot of persons suffer while they are alive, die a pauper,
and have their best funeral.
And sometimes you say to yourself, where are persons?
Papa never had a white suit in life, but him have to have a white suit to bury.
But if you want to pay the proper insurance and get the money to do whatever you want to do, that's fine. But I encourage persons not to be wasteful, but to be prudent in their decisions that they are making, and ensure that they are making preparation for life after death and after funeral. So persons take out insurance, and some ensure that they can bury the loved one, and some want some to pay off the mortgage afterwards, and some want to pay off some things. It's up to you. But I would say to you, when we are paying out a premium, the benefits, we don't say this is what you can use it for. The owner, the person who has died, has indicated that when I die, I want 40% to go to my son, 20% to my nephew, that's about 60, and another 40% to my wife. And you do that, you pay out. What they do with it afterwards, it's out of our hands.
That's life insurance. Funeral insurance might be more immediate.
Same thing. You pay out the benefits to the named beneficiary.
All right.
Sum insured.
Sum insurance. You pay out the sum insured.
Yeah.
Now, if you're smart, you look at the sum insured, make a decision, and some persons, based on how much they have insured, they say, we'll have to add some more to it. I mean, Calvin said 250,000. I don't know where that. I'm telling you. The last person that I buried in my family, the repast and the food, etc., cost more than the casket.
Well, I mean, let me tell you, and we're now seeing people, Carlton, I see you there trying to intervene. Is there something else that you're seeing as well that people might not have in mind? Because people are looking and they're saying $750,000, I don't know where I'm going to find it, but also I have to. The story will follow us for the rest of our lives. It will be personal and family shame. If I don't come up with the money, I might have to reach out to family members from abroad saying to them, well, you know, Papa need a good funeral. That might mean that there are additional storage costs as they then sort this out. Is that then a set of pressure that people feel during this time? Even if they want to be frugal and follow all the instructions that you give them, they still feel that this might be the time they go above the budget in order to impress others.
That is why I wanted to interject just now. I heard you mention about the life insurance, and I wanted for us, as we are finding the solution, to have persons to think not just about the life insurance, but as I mentioned, I start the same way, I'll end the same way. We are aware that death is a part of what is to come, and we know that the life insurance should cover other things. There is the facility there, options there for death insurance. It is way less cheaper than life insurance in most cases.
So that funeral insurance that you spoke
Funeral insurance, yeah. You need to capitalize on that to ensure that when it is that the time has come, you want to put on the person good, there is the option there to actually do that. Because too often we depend on the church collection, the GoFundMes, etc. And there are options that we can participate in, which is not as expensive.
Michael Diamond.
Go ahead.
This is something that has a consumer affairs aspect to it as well, because this lack of ability to see the list of prices, to know what you're getting into, means that people start off by saying $250,000 might be enough. And then they start being confronted with prices. They get confronted with the price of the managed water that has to come, the liquor that needs to be bought. And so we don't often have a single figure that guides individuals as they're making these. Is that dangerous for consumers going into something not even knowing what having a sense of what they'd be paying for?
Well, it certainly can be financially dangerous. And we have to keep in mind the fact that most individuals, you know, there isn't a set roadmap of how to live financially. You know, so certainly when deaths occur, you know, we're still ignorant of that. We do have a population that is pretty much financially literate. You know, so that culture of being, you know, financially responsible is not going to be there. The greatest advantage is that when you do go to a experienced professional funeral director, for example, with Mr. Lynn here, is that you can also be advised on a product that some funeral homes offer, which is pre-need, where you can actually make arrangements, pre-arrangements that can, the cost that you'll be paying today, you know, God forbid, you know, you pass in the future, you don't have to worry about that future cost because you can make arrangements today, planning pretty much every aspect of that funeral.
Effectively hire purchasing your funeral so that your family does not have to deal with it?
In advance, yes, you can. You know? So this is also something that some funeral homes do offer you, you know, and you'll get that benefit from being able to make these planned arrangements so that you don't have to have the family. Because once that emotional side kicks in, you know, oftentimes you're not thinking about a budget. You know, you're just attempting to express this individual's life in such a way that money is not an issue. And when you call abroad, of course, there's also this guilt participation that occurs that, you know, hey, such and such passed. And oftentimes that guilt have them also borrowing funds so that they can send to assist. And then that life after that is death, is what occurs after death, you know, that you are financially now in a bind. But the reality of it is that individuals really do need to read the fine print, right? And, you know, shop around, do shop around. You know, there are individual funeral homes that can offer proper service, not just based on the fact that you look like you can afford it, but also want to be able to give you some dignified experience for your loved one.
Calvin Lane, you are the one who is often there at the moment of grief for many families, and you and the association members that you represent are the ones that are guiding them through it. What's one big thing that you would say to family members when they go to a funeral home to make sure that this is a sound and safe place to leave their family members in the care of?
Just to say that, not trying to devour anybody, but we should shop around for the trained and qualified funeral homes that are on the island. And I will also...
Because you're saying that some are not trained and some are not qualified.
Not at all. And I will use this opportunity to call on the government once more to get the regulation that has been there from 2014. We have a draft. That draft was amended late 2019. We got that copy by the present government. And it's like a pulling wisdom teeth. Nothing is being done presently. I say this without fear or favor. I wrote the current Minister of Health about the regulation, and over a year now I've not had a reply from him.
When someone goes to an unregulated and inappropriate funeral home, what are some of the risks that they run?
Well, I'll tell you a couple complaints I've had whereby they pay X amount to these people, and when the funeral day, nobody, the remains is not there at the church.
This is horrifying as we close this show, but the business of death is one that we wanted to make you aware of, the kind of costs that you might face, the kinds of pressures you might deal with, and the kind of products that exist to make that a little easier. Dignity after death should not depend on income, fine print, or bureaucratic delay. Markets must be fair, insurance must be clear, and when the state takes control, it must take responsibility. Because grief is not a business opportunity, and dignity is not a luxury good. That's where we leave it here tonight. I'm Jodianne Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story Prime. I hope you stay safe. Next up, Fan Central.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodianne Quarry.
Brought to you by
VC's Electrical Sales.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard, and the music keeps on playing, and the people them I say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't fit it down. Shine your lights on.
Welcome to Jamrock, Jamaica, Jamaica. Oh, my reggae, reggae, nice and it make ya.
It is such a joy to be here this evening with you at the 2025 Hummingbird Gala.
The American Friends of Jamaica presents its Hummingbird Gala, honoring Joseph Joe Bogdanovich and Jason Hensel.
We're celebrating business leaders. We are celebrating public servants, philanthropists.
Don't miss it this Thursday at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.